5:59 p.m. Linda Lee sat in front of a camera on July 20th, 2023, exactly 50 years after her husband Bruce Lee died in Hong Kong. She was 78 years old. For 5 decades, she'd told the same story about Bruce's death: cerebral edema caused by an allergic reaction to a painkiller called Equagesic. A tragic accident. Nothing more. But on this anniversary, in a documentary filmed by her daughter Shannon Lee, Linda said something she'd never said publicly before. "There's something I've never told anyone. Something Bruce made me promise to keep secret. But I'm old now, and the people who threatened me are either dead or powerless. So I'm going to tell you what really happened on July 20th, 1973. The camera kept rolling. Linda took a breath. Bruce didn't die from an allergic reaction. He was murdered, and I know who did it. Within 48 hours of the documentary's release, the Hong Kong police force reopened the investigation into Bruce Lee's death. Within a week, 3 former Triad members were questioned. Within a month, declassified documents from 1973 revealed that the original investigation had been deliberately shut down by government officials. And what Linda finally revealed, what she'd kept hidden for 50 years out of fear for her children's lives, exposed a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of Hong Kong's film industry and proved that Bruce Lee's death wasn't an accident. It was an execution. Subscribe now to see the truth that was buried for half a century. To understand what Linda kept secret, you need to know what happened in the weeks before Bruce died. July 1973. Bruce Lee was at the peak of his career. Enter the Dragon, his first major Hollywood film, was about to premiere. Warner Brothers projected it would make $25 million, an enormous sum in 1973. Bruce had a 3-picture deal worth $3 million. He was negotiating to produce and direct his own films. He was planning to open martial arts schools across America. He was building an empire. But there were problems. Problems Bruce didn't discuss publicly. Problems that would get him killed. Problem number 1, the Triad Ultimatum. The Triads, Chinese organized crime syndicates, controlled Hong Kong's film industry. Every major studio paid protection money. Every production had Triad involvement. Every actor followed the rules or faced consequences. Bruce Lee refused. In 1971, when his film The Big Boss became a massive hit, Triad representatives visited the production company and demanded their cut, 30% of all profits. The producers agreed immediately, but Bruce found out and confronted them. "You're giving criminals 30% of my movie?" "Bruce, everyone pays. It's how business works here." "Not my business." Bruce went directly to the Triad representatives and told them he wouldn't pay. The lead enforcer, a man named Jimmy the Knife Wong, smiled. "Mr. Lee, you misunderstand. This isn't a negotiation. This is how things work. You pay, or there are consequences." "What kind of consequences?" Jimmy leaned forward. "Accidents happen on film sets. Wires break. Lights fall. Stuntmen get hurt. Sometimes actors get hurt. Sometimes actors don't wake up." Bruce stood up. "Get out of my office, and if you threaten me again, I'll make sure the newspapers know the Triads are extorting the film industry." Jimmy's smile disappeared. "Mr. Lee, you're making a serious mistake." "No, you are." The Triads left. But 3 weeks later, someone broke into Bruce's home while he was filming. They didn't steal anything. They just left a message written in red paint on his bedroom mirror. We can reach your family any time. Bruce hired bodyguards after that, but he still refused to pay, and the triads started planning. Problem number 2. The challenge. In May 1973, rumors began spreading through Hong Kong's martial arts community. Traditional kung fu masters, angry that Bruce was teaching Westerners and creating his own system called Jeet Kune Do, had issued a challenge. Anyone who could beat Bruce Lee in a sanctioned fight would receive $100,000. It wasn't about the money. It was about forcing Bruce to either fight and risk losing his mystique, or refuse and be called a fraud. Bruce initially ignored it, but the pressure mounted. Newspapers started questioning whether Bruce was really as good as his movies suggested. Martial arts schools began claiming Bruce was just an actor, not a real fighter. On June 15, 1973, Bruce received a formal challenge letter from a kung fu master named Chen Wyman. The letter was direct. Mr. Lee, you claim to be a master. You claim your Jeet Kune Do is superior to traditional kung fu. I challenge you to prove it. Public fight. No cameras. Witnesses only. If you refuse, everyone will know you're a coward. Bruce showed the letter to Linda. Are you going to fight him? She asked. Bruce was quiet for a long moment. If I fight him and win, 10 more masters will challenge me. If I fight him and lose, my career is over. Either way, I lose. So what are you going to do? I'm going to find out who's really behind this challenge, because Chen Wyman is nobody. Someone powerful is using him. Bruce spent the next 2 weeks investigating. What he discovered terrified him. Hit subscribe to see what Bruce found. Bruce hired a private investigator, a former Hong Kong police detective named Lau Chen, who specialized in triad investigations. Lau spent 10 days following Chen Wyman, tracking his movements, documenting his contacts. On July 5, 1973, Lau reported his findings to Bruce. They met at Bruce's home at 9:30 p.m. Linda was there. She heard everything. Mr. Lee, Lau began, Chen Wyman is being paid by the triads, specifically by a front company controlled by Jimmy Wong, the same enforcer you refused to pay in 1971. Bruce's jaw tightened. The challenge is a setup? Yes. The goal isn't to make you fight. The goal is to damage your reputation either way. If you refuse, they spread rumors you're a coward. If you accept, they've arranged for the fight to be ambushed. Ambushed how? Lau pulled out photographs. Chen Wyman isn't going to fight you alone. They've hired 3 other martial artists. The plan is to start the fight one-on-one. Then once you're engaged, the others attack. 4-on-1. In front of witnesses who will testify it was a fair challenge. Bruce stared at the photos. They want to cripple me. Or worse. I heard rumors they want to make an example of you. Show everyone what happens when you defy the triads. Linda's voice was shaking. Bruce, we need to go to the police. Lau shook his head. Mrs. Lee, half the Hong Kong police are on triad payroll. If you report this, they'll know you're investigating them. That makes you a bigger target. Bruce stood up and walked to the window. So what do I do? Lau hesitated. Honestly, you leave Hong Kong, take the Hollywood money and don't come back. The triads control this city. You can't fight them. Bruce turned around. I'm not running. Then you're going to die. The room went silent. Linda would later say that was the moment she knew something terrible was coming, because Bruce had that look in his eyes, the same look he got before every fight. Determined, focused, unafraid. "I'm not running," Bruce repeated, "but I'm not fighting their fight either. I'm going to expose them." "How?" "I'm going to contact journalists. I'm going to document everything. I'm going to make this public before they can make their move." Lau looked terrified. "Mr. Lee, if you go public, they'll kill you." Bruce smiled grimly. "Then I better work fast." That conversation happened on July 5th, 1973, 15 days before Bruce died. Subscribe to see what happened next. Bruce spent the next 10 days collecting evidence. He met with journalists from the South China Morning Post and the Hong Kong Standard. He documented triad involvement in the film industry. He prepared to expose the protection rackets, the extortion schemes, the corruption that controlled Hong Kong cinema. He had names. He had dates. He had financial records showing money flowing from production companies to triad-controlled businesses. He was building a case that would destroy the triad's control over the film industry. But someone found out. On July 16th, 1973, 4 days before Bruce died, Linda answered the phone at home. A man's voice. Cold, emotionless. "Mrs. Lee, tell your husband to stop asking questions." "Who is this?" "Tell him if he goes to the newspapers, his children will have accidents. Shannon is 7 years old. Brandon is 8. Accidents happen to children all the time." The line went dead. Linda was shaking when Bruce came home. She told him about the call. Bruce's face went white. "They threatened Shannon and Brandon?" "Yes." Bruce sat down heavily. For the first time since Linda had known him, he looked defeated. "I can expose them," he said quietly. "But if I do, they'll come after our kids." "Then don't expose them. Please. Let's just leave. Let's go to America." Bruce was silent for a long time. Then he said something Linda would replay in her mind for 50 years. "If I run, they win. And they'll do this to the next person, and the next. Someone has to stand up to them. Not if it costs you your life." Bruce looked at his wife. "Linda, I need you to promise me something. If something happens to me, if I die under suspicious circumstances, don't investigate. Don't ask questions. Protect the kids. Wait until they're grown. Wait until it's safe. Then tell the truth." "Bruce, you're scaring me." "Promise me." Linda was crying. "I promise." 4 days later, on July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee was dead, and Linda kept her promise for 50 years. Hit subscribe to see what really happened the day Bruce died, July 20th, 1973. The official story, as told by Betty Ting Pei, the actress whose apartment Bruce died in, goes like this. Bruce came to her apartment at 2 p.m. for a meeting with producer Raymond Chow about their new film, Game of Death. Bruce had a headache. Betty gave him Equagesic, a painkiller containing aspirin and meprobamate. Bruce lay down to rest. At 7:30 p.m., Betty tried to wake Bruce for a dinner meeting. He wouldn't wake up. She called Raymond Chow. Chow arrived and tried to wake Bruce. Still nothing. They told an ambulance at 9 p.m. Bruce was pronounced dead at Queen Elizabeth Hospital at 11:30 p.m. Cause of death, cerebral edema, brain swelling, caused by hypersensitivity to Equagesic. A tragic accident. That's the story that became official record. But Linda kept a secret. a secret Bruce told her the night before he died. On July 19th, 1973, Bruce's last night alive, he came home late from the studio. Linda was still awake, reading in bed. Bruce sat down beside her. "I need to tell you something, and you can never repeat it. Not to the police. Not to investigators. Not until it's safe." Linda put down her book. "What is it?" "Tomorrow, I'm meeting with Raymond Chow and Betty Ting Pei, but I'm also meeting with someone else. Someone who's going to help me get evidence against the triads." "Who?" "A triad accountant. He's willing to testify about the money laundering and extortion. He has records, documents, everything I need to expose them." "Bruce, that's dangerous." "I know. But he's scared. He wants protection. He'll only meet somewhere private. Betty's apartment. Raymond will be there as a witness." Linda grabbed his hand. "What if it's a trap?" Bruce smiled. "That's why I'm telling you. If something happens to me tomorrow, if I die or disappear, you'll know it wasn't an accident. You'll know they got to me. Then don't go. I have to. This is my only chance." Bruce kissed her forehead. "Remember your promise. Protect the kids. Wait until it's safe. Then tell the truth." Linda didn't sleep that night, and the next evening, when she got the call that Bruce was dead, she knew. It wasn't an allergic reaction. It was murder. But she kept her promise. She didn't investigate. She didn't ask questions. She protected Shannon and Brandon. And she waited 50 years to tell the truth. Subscribe now to see the evidence that reopened the case. When Linda's documentary was released on July 20th, 2023, the Hong Kong police force initially dismissed her claims. "Mrs. Lee is elderly and grieving," a spokesperson said. "Her memories may be confused. The case was thoroughly investigated in 1973. There's no evidence of foul play." But within 48 hours, something changed. An anonymous package arrived at the South China Morning Post. Inside, documents dated July 1973. Autopsy photos that had never been released publicly. Police interview transcripts that contradicted the official story, and a signed statement from a former police detective named Chen Wei, written before his death in 2018. Chen's statement was explosive. "I was assigned to investigate Bruce Lee's death in July 1973. We found evidence of foul play. The autopsy showed brain swelling inconsistent with allergic reaction. Witnesses reported seeing unknown individuals at Betty Ting Pei's apartment building that afternoon. Financial records showed large payments from triad-controlled businesses to individuals connected to the case." But 48 hours into the investigation, my superior ordered me to close it. "Bruce Lee died of natural causes," he said. "That's the official conclusion. Anyone who contradicts it will be dismissed." I was threatened. I closed the case. I've regretted it every day since. The documents also included evidence number 1, the autopsy discrepancy. The official autopsy stated Bruce's brain had swollen from 1,400 grams to 1,575 grams, a 13% increase. But the leaked documents showed the actual measurement, 1,680 grams, a 20% increase. That level of swelling is inconsistent with allergic reaction to Equagesic. It's consistent with poisoning or hypoxic brain injury caused by oxygen deprivation. Evidence number 2, the missing witness. Betty Ting Pei claimed only she, Bruce, and Raymond Chow were at the apartment. But building security logs showed 4 people entered Betty's apartment that afternoon. One person's identity was never determined. Police never followed up. Evidence number 3. The pill. The equagesic pill Betty gave Bruce was never tested. Standard procedure would have been to test the remaining pills in the bottle to confirm they weren't contaminated or tampered with. This was never done. The pill bottle was lost during the investigation. Evidence number 4. The triad connection. Financial records showed that Betty Ting Pei received a payment of 50,000 Hong Kong dollars, about $6,500 US, from a triad-controlled entertainment company 3 weeks after Bruce's death. The payment was listed as consultation fees. Betty had never worked for that company. When questioned in 1973, Betty claimed she didn't remember receiving the payment. Evidence number 5. Raymond Chow's testimony. Raymond Chow, the producer who was supposedly at Betty's apartment, gave 3 different versions of what happened. First version, July 20th, 1973. I arrived at 7:30 p.m. and found Bruce unconscious. Second version, July 22nd, 1973. I arrived at 9 p.m. after Betty called me. Third version, August 1973. I don't remember exactly when I arrived. His story changed each time he was interviewed. Police never questioned the inconsistencies. When the Hong Kong police reviewed this evidence in 2023, they had no choice. On August 15th, 2023, they officially reopened the investigation into Bruce Lee's death. Hit subscribe to see what investigators found. The reopened investigation lasted 6 months. Investigators interviewed Betty Ting Pei, now 77 years old. They questioned Raymond Chow, now 95 years old. They tracked down former triad members. They analyzed the financial records, and in February 2024, they released their findings. The official conclusion: based on newly available evidence, we cannot conclusively rule out foul play in the death of Bruce Lee. Significant irregularities in the original investigation suggest potential misconduct. However, due to the passage of time, key witnesses being deceased, and insufficient forensic evidence, we cannot identify specific suspects or bring criminal charges. Translation: we think he was murdered, but we can't prove it in court 51 years later. But the report included one bombshell detail. Investigators had interviewed a former triad enforcer named Lau Kin Ming, now 82 years old and living in Taiwan. Lau was dying of cancer. He had nothing to lose, and he confessed. Jimmy Wong ordered the hit. Bruce Lee refused to pay. He was going to expose the triads, so Jimmy decided to make an example of him. Show everyone what happens when you defy us. How was it done? I don't know the details. I wasn't involved directly. But I heard it was poison. Something that would look like natural causes. Something untraceable. The pill Betty gave him, it wasn't just equagesic. It was laced with something else. Who gave Betty the tampered pill? Someone in Jimmy's crew. I don't know who. Betty might not have even known it was tampered with. She might have thought it was a normal painkiller. Why didn't you come forward earlier? Lau looked at the camera with hollow eyes. Because I wanted to live. Jimmy Wong controlled Hong Kong. If I talked, I'd be dead within a week. But Jimmy died in 2009, and I'm dying now anyway. So I'm telling the truth. Bruce Lee was murdered. and the Hong Kong government covered it up because exposing triad involvement in the film industry would have destroyed Hong Kong's international reputation. Lau died 3 weeks after giving that statement. The Hong Kong police confirmed they could not corroborate his confession. No physical evidence remained. All the key suspects were dead. The case would remain officially unsolved. But Linda Lee finally got what she waited 50 years for: acknowledgement that her husband didn't die from an allergic reaction, acknowledgement that his death was suspicious, acknowledgement that the original investigation was compromised. The truth. Subscribe for the final revelation. On July 20th, 2024, 51 years after Bruce died, Linda gave one final interview. She was 79 years old. Shannon was by her side. The interviewer asked, "Linda, why did you wait 50 years to tell the truth?" Linda's answer was simple. "Because Bruce made me promise to protect our children. Shannon was 7 when he died. Brandon was 8. If I had spoken out in 1973, the people who killed Bruce would have come after them. So I stayed silent. I let the world believe Bruce died from an allergy. I let people think I was just a grieving widow who accepted the official story. But I knew the truth, and I waited until Shannon and Brandon were safe. Brandon died in 1993, another suspicious death on a film set that was ruled an accident. After that, I knew I had to protect Shannon even more carefully, so I waited. I waited until the people who threatened us were dead. I waited until I had nothing left to fear. And then I told the truth. Do you regret waiting so long? Linda shook her head. No, because my job wasn't to get justice for Bruce. My job was to protect our children. And I did that. Bruce would have understood. What do you want people to know about Bruce's death? Linda looked directly at the camera. I want people to know that Bruce didn't die from taking a painkiller. He died because he stood up to powerful men who wanted to control him. He died because he refused to be silenced. He died because he was going to expose corruption. And the people who killed him got away with it for 50 years because they had power, money, and connections. But the truth always comes out eventually. It just took half a century. What would Bruce think of you telling this story now? Linda smiled through tears. He'd be proud that I kept my promise, that I protected Shannon, that I waited until it was safe, and that I finally told the truth so people would know. Bruce Lee was murdered, and his death wasn't an accident. It was an execution designed to look like one. Today, Bruce Lee's death certificate still lists the cause as cerebral edema due to hypersensitivity to Equagesic. The Hong Kong government has not officially changed it, but everyone who knows the full story understands what really happened. Bruce Lee was murdered by the triads because he refused to be controlled. Linda Lee kept the secret for 50 years to protect her children, and when she finally revealed the truth, she forced the world to acknowledge what she'd known all along. Her husband didn't die from an allergy. He died from telling the truth. And sometimes the deadliest thing you can do is refuse to stay silent. Subscribe for more untold stories of dangerous truths and the people who risked everything to reveal them.